They're removing ballasts, hooking up different lights, doing tube lights, and, yeah.
So
Budget
workshop, Sean
Or
Floor.
really, at the end of the day, just trying to find the exact matching color and making it look.
I just
That's
wanted
the
to
biggest
send,
one.
I'll send you guys the picture of mine and I'll send you guys some stuff on the,
Yeah, whatever, it helps, yeah.
because they're
Okay,
cheap.
see you tomorrow.
Well, they
It's
are.
very, it's very reasonable.
Go home,
Yes,
go home.
Very reasonable.
Let me just lose order.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what
Is
you're
it
seeing. Okay, I'm gonna zoom in a bit so you can. look
I was
better.
gonna say,
And,
can we?
Yeah, I will. It's just, it's pretty small, so, turn the tables.
I'm old, I need to be able to see this.
Okay, so that's 200% as far as it's gonna get on this, so I'll be scrolling quite a bit, but I'm just gonna start with the columns that are the averages and so forth. So what this spreadsheet is, and my wife Heather worked on it for 15 years, but I don't know how to use it.
They close for
And is we took the actual expenses from the expense reports from Associate up through August. Now, August, they gave us some expense report, but they didn't pay any bills. So there's hardly any numbers in the August column, which is K, you see it? So what we did is we added the things that we saw that were overlapped, that we paid for August or they deposited for us that didn't actually get allocated. So I have an adjustment column in here. So that's unusual because of this transition. So that's what this adjustment column is you're seeing here. Now I'll go over some of those things. These negative numbers were things that they credited. This negative 760 is they were doing an interesting amortization of our prior year deficit to span it out over the year, which then they in turn made a mistake, which is a windfall for us. And I'm going to explain this in a second. But when they opened the new accounts finally in May, they put the whole thing in the accounts and they were still amortizing all the way through the year. So that money that we've been spending as expense actually doesn't exist, or doesn't need to exist on the books. So that means it's more money that we have in our actual revenue, which is awesome. So I'll explain how that panned out. So the column that's in green is because the month didn't finish out yet. So October, we haven't finished yet. So this is what we have to date as of last night. And I purposely made sure that we didn't spend any, except for someone here did. I'm not pointing fingers.
Something.
Okay, so, anyway, but that's okay, it's not a nominal amount of money, so. Remember that they were doing, accrual accounting for the income, which in layman's terms means that they were telling us that we were gonna collect 100% of our income every month without fail. That, of course, looks great on paper, but in essence, it causes a problem for us because we don't really know what the failure rate is. So I prefer to do this cash. I'm pretty sure that John Joe would agree with that at this point, because we want to know what kind of money we actually have, not what we think we should have. So that's going to change here forward, but I have to keep this accounting method through the end of the year, unfortunately, because it's really hard to split it mid-year and track it. So at the top here, you're seeing assessments. So our total assessments would have been 54,631 a month. Now we do it quarterly, but that's what it averages out per month that we take in. So that means ultimately our budget should be under that if we're spending correctly. I'm going to go to the bottom of these columns because we're scrolling quite a bit. And we're going to go to the first year. Okay. So
Is that including delinquency?
I'm sorry.
Is that including delinquencies or not?
No, it is not. So out of the gate, month one, this is column D here is December. We're in red. We gain a little bit. And then we gain a little bit more, and then we go into red pretty drastically because we were waiting to pay back the borrowed money, I'll call it that, borrowed money from the service areas and the reserve that they had filed up the year before. That gets put back into play in May because then we open those new accounts. Then we start running, negative numbers all along. So I'm showing you, this is showing you the end of the month, and the line below is the year to date. So we're at 14,000 negative, 14,000 negative. We have 2 black months, and then we go red the rest of the time they manage those. We're in the red the whole year. Okay. We knew that. We've seen the financials. These balance of the financials. It's not anything fun to look at, but we knew that. So that's one of the reasons we made this switch. Now let me show you what happened as soon as we started making this switch. We start going to the black immediately. And the reason that we do is we actually averaged $12,000 a month savings since the time we have left Associate.
Even with my spending.
Okay? That's helpful, but it's not killing the deficit. Okay, so now our total at the end of the year with the last 2 months being projected, and you're seeing the yellow stuff here is things that I averaged because it's the easiest way to do it. Anything that isn't in yellow is money that's actual real expenses for the month. And these ones with the black boxes are balloon payments. The balloon payments because associate didn't pay a couple months and I have to catch up. Okay, so we have 4 accounts like that that need to get caught up. So that's going to come out of November's budget. So all this is pretty even all the way down. You can see that the burn rate down here is about 37, 46, 39, about $40,000 a month. That's what we're actually spending per month on our budget when we're taking in 54. That's including reserves. So the budget we made last year was pretty good.
Right.
The fact that they burnt it up in a bunch of areas is what caused us problems. So I put everything in red that went over the 100% mark. Okay, so audit and taxes, we went over 145%. Pool supplies went 191%. Building repair and maintenance, 153%. Security cameras, and that's because of the transition to this new security system, 214%. Okay,
Yeah, let me
so-
ask, so we went over because it wasn't budgeted correctly, or is it because?
no, because it was budgeted correctly. We just didn't pay attention to the budget. We just spent money without paying attention to it. So
so we're just gonna include-
janitorial services, 135. Here's one that's great. This is one I want you to see. See that one up there? 863% over our irrigation repair and maintenance budget. Whoopsie,
What was the original budget for the year,
750.
for the whole year?
Right, now this
Oh,
is,
well, that's ridiculous.
okay, hold on a second.
Sorry.
Let me tell you how this budget went into play.
Really feel.
Let me tell you how this budget played out, okay?
Okay,
Initially, the CAM put the budget together and the finance committee got involved in looking at it.
mhm,
We were invited to workshops, kind of like the one we're doing right now, and we were told we weren't allowed to ask questions. So we then
Yeah.
started looking at the numbers closely on our own and realized that the sheet that she put together actually didn't even add up correctly. The columns weren't added correctly. There was a $200,000 income error. There were all kinds of problems with it. So I made a budget based on the correct numbers that she gave us and her assessment of what the year to date was. And only changed the things that I knew for sure were going to be out of the water. So some of these numbers were her numbers and we lived with them. But this is where it failed. Now, mind you, because we did that savings, we're still going to be in the black at the end of the year, kind of, and I'll explain further in just a moment. Repair landscaping, we hit pretty well, okay? Mulch, we went over a bit. And some of this is inflation. When you're seeing like a 10% variance, it's because of inflation. So that's something that's part of our contingency that we should have built in, right? So phone and internet, okay, that's because we have an overlap. Remember, we have an overlap with the news service. Now we're saving money because we're spending $300 a month. Now we're spending 94, so that's next year's spending, right? So 132 in miscellaneous recreation expenses. I won't go there, but that has something to do with things that we didn't budget for social. And then, but the office supplies is not so bad. Office equipment. This is because we're throwing leases into that we didn't have before, so that's understandable. Here's one, general administration. Now, there's a big number here. You see the big number here that we put in? I moved that into another category in our new budget to give you a reason to look for it. But that number is what the pass-throughs were for associate. That's what they charge us for extra things that we didn't account for.
Take back that for 1 second.
Yeah,
Just go back to the entertainment.
go back to what I'm trying to say.
Entertainment.
entertainment,
Entertainment,
Entertainment, you have
recreation,
I'm just like-
installation, recreation.
okay, you're saying it went over by 132%?
Okay, so that line was budgeted $500 last year.
Okay, but that line, but the social committee events was budgeted.
Different line.
Okay, got it. So
You
what
did,
so
you
what
actually,
did-
you guys saved a bunch of money there. So that's understandable. We used it other places, but
No, what's my, I understand what you, I get that, but what was purchased? What caused that to go so?
okay, so here's a newfangled thing. The reason that I wanted to see all these little invoices that they were supposed to give us is that because they post things, I can't tell whether it was misposted or posted without the invoice. All I can say is it says it was this, and that's all at the end of it. I don't even, in most cases, don't even have a vendor attached to it. I just had it was posted ACH payment, so forth. The dump they gave us had lots of invoices attached to it. Every one of them were for another association, not ours,
Well,
What would the exception of,
exception of their bill to us.
which of course, as you know, has no supporting documentation for what they.
So we have something in there that pushed it over 100%, but we don't,
We don't know what it is, because we don't have the source documents.
So moving on, I mean, that's a minor one comparatively
we
speaking.
just wanted to understand, because it didn't click.
So let's look at the blue numbers here. These blue numbers are income. And we did go over income in some areas. The one that we went over drastically was, of course, legal reimbursements, because we had an overlap at the beginning of the year that was $35,000 that was due because of the Sandpiper Crest debacle. If you guys remember that it was, they were making a settlement, they were gonna reimburse us, that money came back in May. So that's why that number's inflated so badly, because we ended up we weren't planning with our new collection agencies to have any of this repayment. All of a sudden, I've got $56,000 that came back to us that is now income. That's a windfall, but it offset the deficit that we had at the end of the year, so it's a wash. If that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
The other thing that we did is application fees. We blew that out of the water. We banked for 3,000. We did 6126. Application fees are for transfer of ownership, and the rental applications are all in that application fee number. So we made some extra money there. Awesome. Okay. Gate fees. We made extra money on gate fees for people losing their cards, etc. I don't know what a user fee is, but we got $20 in it that I have no idea what it's for. So I just left it there because it's nominal, right? The other thing that we did really well is the the rental clubhouse rental. We had budgeted 5. We did 9,744 on it. Okay. Now remember that $10,000 we had in social was because that was my anticipation would be $10,000. So we hit that pretty much on the nose. Gotta love that. So some of these things are good. I mean, really good things. So let's go down to the bottom line and look again. The prior year deficit offsets this 18,000%. But the at the bottom of this, we were really at 99% of our budget after we saved those 3 months. So the budget worked, but there were a whole lot of problems getting there. Those problems caused some other issues. So let's look at this new table I put at the bottom to show you how this breaks down. This is similar to the one we did the last meeting, a little bit more detailed. Okay. We think we're going to have $41,000 profitability at the end of the year. Okay. Technically, 10% is supposed to be left if we've done this correctly and things didn't go awry. That's our contingency, right? Plus the AR. We have nearly $29,000 outstanding as of yesterday for dues for the master. Okay. So that gives us a profitability of $12,081. We are going to pull some money from reserves we haven't done. That's the money that we approved for the security cameras and upgrades on the access. We approved that a while back. It hasn't been transferred.
I thought that was the playground.
It's both.
Okay.
The playground is also in here. We did repairs for the playground, paid for it out of operating, but it's got to come from reserve. I've not done that transfer yet. So that 14,100 is just 2 items. And I marked these playground and gate system. Okay, it's spelled wrong. It's size 10. But anyway, but in any event, that's where that's coming from. So that's money coming back. So we have prepaid payroll. This assumes that we're spending $20,000 a month in payroll, but I did something really quickly at the beginning of this month. I transferred the rest of the payroll into the payroll account, so it's already prepaid. So we're not going to be taking it out of operating, it's already out of operating. So our cash is already in the payroll. We can back that back in as part of our revenue. And then we have some prepaid insurance. And that prepaid insurance was paid in April and will go through April. So that money is actually not going to be in our budget calculation at this moment because it's already paid. So that gives us $70,488 at this point. Okay, that's a good number. However, since May, we have not paid the service areas May to August from Associated. They never transfer money to the service areas for their revenue. That comes to $106,000. And they didn't transfer reserves either. That's our reserves, and that's $6,671. That puts us now backwards $31,000.
Is that the amount that we were debating whether pricing?
That's another conversation, but part of this is not the amount, that's coming down further. I'll show you in a second. It's a good question. There were some mispostings doing and so forth. These areas are just because they just didn't do it. It's not really a misposting or a problem, but let's talk about that a little further. So
Is it money they still have and we don't?
they have no money of ours. We have all the money. I took it out of them as soon as I could.
Okay.
I mean, the first day I could.
I do have a kind of related question, we can push it, but money that we're going back after and reclaiming from the mess up and the shortfall on the accounts, is that included in here at all?
The shortfall in accounts for, you're talking about the freemen and so forth. It is to an extent. I'll show you here. So right now we have overpayments in the master of $22,150.02. Okay, if we refunded that like we discussed, that's going to make the number go up for the deficit. Now, I'm going to give you some options to that in a second. That means the total deficit realistically is $51,139.80. Now, let me address the Friedman issue. The Friedman issue is about $53,000. We think doubtful of about 40% of it, and the rest of it might be real. The problem with the Friedman issue is they posted money that was income, should have been in that reimbursed thing that we talked about, to people that actually never paid us dues. So here's an example. I don't pay my dues. I go to collections. Collections finally collects for me. They clear up that, but the fee, the $1,000 fee that you're supposed to pay directly to the attorney, didn't go directly to the attorney. It went to the homeowner's account. So now I have a positive $1,000. Okay. So they're riding around if we've got $53,000 that's positive money that we don't have as new income. The $53,000 we got, but the income that they replaced is missing. So let's say it's a year's worth of dues, then there's $542 for that. And there's a service area, there's so much for that. So whatever we didn't get from them is what we're missing. That's a deficit. That we assume is about $29,000 at this point.
Do you think we might be able to recoup that? Though?
I do,
Mhm.
but it's not gonna happen this year because we have to get the source documents and we're gonna have to set out nasty grams and we're gonna have people come here and make us paint their fence gray. So but other than that, sorry, that was wrong. I apologize. Strike that from the record. You guys strike that from the record. Sorry, that was wrong. Anyway. I know you can dress me out, and it's bad. So yes, so I didn't put this in this year's deficit or budget because I don't think it's going to affect this year as far as projections go. It's going to be a windfall if we get it. Do you understand? It'll help us for next year. I'm guessing it's going to be the middle of the year before we actually see it. So here's my options for you. We have a $53,000 deficit. The refunds, we could send out a letter asking, hey, Mr. Jones, you have a $1,000 prepayment. Would you like to let it ride or would you like to have it refunded? Ethically and morally, we're supposed to refund it, but if they tell us to let it ride, we can keep it in our accounts as a prepaid assessment.
What's the total prepaid again?
That's the less than the prepaid assessments. We had $22,150.02 as of yesterday. In prepaid assessments, people have paid too much for the year.
Right.
Now, I can tell you how that happened. We have multiple accounts that on Town Square set themselves up for both ACH and credit card payments at the same time. Okay,
Does that help us though? Let's.
it doesn't help us.
It doesn't help us by even by $20,000 because then we're still sent it and we didn't.
That's the.
Account for it next year. So
Wow, that's great. I'm glad you picked up on that. And John probably will said something in a second because, yeah, we've already spent the money.
That's a horrible idea.
No, we've already spent the money,
We've
so that
already
means we're gonna
spent it.
lose it in income next year. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay, so these are my suggestions. We can make it right like we did last year, but this will be the third year we've taken a deficit forward and tried to pull ourselves out of it and not successfully done so. Or we can do a special assessment, up to 10% is allowed without a vote of the members, which is $52.40, not a whole lot of money. I'm saying that for your sake, because I want your eyes to get big. $54.20, sorry.
I think you voted before earlier too.
That's 54.
54.20, that comes out to $66,503.40 if 100% of the homeowners pay it.
Right.
We have 40% doubtful at this point. So I back that back out. The doubtful accounts of 13,000. And you know what it leaves us? $62.92 at the end of the day.
Don't say spend it all in one day.
So we have two choices here to make. First is, do we do an assessment or do we bury it into this new
Next year's budget.
budget? The other problem is that, let's take a look at this budget first, my proposed budget, so I can show you. I have put padding in it for inflation. I've put padding in it for catastrophic failure, like trees falling. We had a bunch of that this year, by the way. And things that we have not actually budgeted for in the past. So let's take a look at that. Looks pretty much the same way that it did last year. So we have remapped this to.
What do you have in here for reserve?
I'm sorry?
What do you have in here for reserve funding?
We're using the component funding from the reserve study. Exactly that. You can see that it's a large amount of money. That's reserve. That's based on the reserve study, exactly what it says on it. I found a discrepancy on the reserve study that I called Steve about today, by the way. The first version we had the retaining wall in it, and then we had him do a couple revisions, and somehow the retaining wall got dumped off on the final version of it, which is something he's got to get put back in. So he's going to make that correction for us. But the numbers we had on the first version are the same as he put back in, so it's not going to change my figures. If we take the $14,000, our starting balance will be different, right? So that's got to come back out. So he's going to make those adjustments too. So I have a clean reserve study that matches our budget, which is really important from here forward. So let's just go through this line by line. So what I put here is 3 columns, like I did last time. This is our approved budget last year. These numbers are the actual numbers according to what we just saw in that worksheet, to make it easier to follow, so you can see how closely along we're following this. Okay, so I know this number looks huge, but just hold on here and I'll explain it to you. We only have 5 units that will close after the first of the year in Sandpiper Crest. I had Troy told me that yesterday, so that means that's the only amount that we'll be seeing for the initial contribution here forward. So that's a fixed number, and I put it in there. Okay, so we took in 61.26 in processing fees. We budgeted 3,000 last year. I'd love to fall on the side of caution on that, because who knows how many houses will sell after Sandpiper. So I've left it at 3,000. The blue boxes are things that I have added or put a larger inflated number into it to compensate for something, and each one of those I'll talk to. Everything else is based on the real expenses or the real contracts. So if you don't see a color on it, look at the far column, you'll see that I put 2,000 in for gate and access fees. We made 2,074 for gate and access fees. We budgeted 1,300 last year, so that's an increase in income. We're in the income section. Clubhouse rentals, we did 9,744. We had 5,000 last year. I put 10,000 this year. Late fees. I don't typically want to budget late fees, okay? Because that means we're encouraging late. So we took in a buttload of money because I've been charging interest and late fees since AppFolio came in automatically. $19,211.44. We haven't collected it yet.
Hey, sorry. Hey,
Thank you. Yeah, we will. I'll send these out to everybody. So I would like to say that we would like to see people paying on time, and I would like the budget that we're going to get $20,000 in late fees. So I put $6,000, and we were $6,800 last year. I broke the $6,800 into 2 pieces because we weren't tracking interest separately. I would like to know how much we're making in interest separately for argument's sake.
Yeah.
We won't have any legal reimbursements. We only put $300 in that last year, assuming that we wouldn't get any of that overlap we talked about but we did, but we'll have 0 this year because there is no overlap. We don't pay upfront, with the exception of liens. We pay $750 upfront for liens. I put that in a different line item because I want to track it separately.
It does come back.
It does, if we collect. Remember, that's always if we collect, so I also
It's
look,
when we collect.
When we collect, because it's a lien foreclosure.
well, it's when. Could be 3 years,
When the HOA applies.
if we collect, in the, let me rephrase it, if we collect this year,
Yeah.
okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so, so moving on here, we don't have any carryover, that was last year's carryover, the deficit. If we put the carryover in here, the $60,000 we talked about, then this number is gonna change. I'm hoping we won't do that, because I'd like to start with a good solid budget that doesn't have buyback, if that makes sense to you. Okay, so 92,400 and $900,042 and change, $42,000 for what expected income. Yeah, it looks like it's gone up. This is what we actually really did this year. It's going up because we're going to change the collections. Now, the orange boxes you're seeing here are the only two variables I had that I think should be altered in this discussion. Unless you guys say you really want to spend money on this, but I'll tell you what it is. The collection charges we just talked about is that $4,500. That doubtful $750 that might carry over into another year. Okay, so if we put someone lien this year, the odds of us collecting it this year is slim. So that's what that is. Okay, so that's the bad debt. I put it as $40,000. $40,000 is it's light if we're collecting 900,000. That's 4%. Worried about that a little bit actually, because we're already at 4%. So that number can be altered a bit, but not a lot. I wouldn't go under 3% at this point, but we're showing 4%. Okay, so moving down here,
So what's included in the bad debt?
people who don't pay us.
Okay.
Yeah. And we have a bit of that at this point. So, these are pretty solid. The yellow ones are just so I can tell you that they're fixed expenses that we've already signed up for. It's what I call our survival rate. If we added up all the yellow lines, that's the minimum we have to come in each month to pay the bills. Payroll included, obviously, reserve included, but everything else is optional. At that point, you can be put off to another time. So I want to know what that burn rate is and where our survival rate is, just in case. We've come to that point a couple times where money didn't flow, and that would be helpful to know where we have to have in the bank. So
What's the?
equipment purchase, here we go. This is a lofty add-on. And it covers a whole bunch of things we've talked about. iPads, a check scanner, 2 document scanners because you're borrowing one right now, some monitors that we need to upgrade, Apple TVs or Fire Sticks. I just put Apple TVs in there because I like them better. But a projector that was talked about last year that we wanted, a sound system, a screen, and now that's all part of the social portion, but it is a one-time purchase or a amortized purchase that we can put over an asset to try to do pretty inexpensive movies once a month or whatever the deal is, because we already have the equipment to set up. Then I put a small amount of contingency in there for, hi, I'm Tommy, I need more door openers.
I'll find
Doesn't happen.
something.
Okay, so
No.
so that's where that number comes in. This is negotiable, that's why it's blue.
I'll turn it.
So what's the iPads for again? Because I think I lost that when you guys were talking about it. What are we using the iPads for?
So Patty needs something in the field, right?
Okay, I see.
You can use an
Okay.
iPad or a laptop or something decent.
Okay. I see.
We're also trying to find better ways to keep everything in Appfolio, and that would help it a lot. It really would, and I know she'd love working on Appfolio in the iPad as opposed to the
We
website.
rent,
So much.
it's another iPad on the mountain right over here. We rented the house. And if people want to use the radio and no one's here to go back in the office in the IT closet, so we could
Punch it up
end up
and pick whatever track they want to listen to.
and we can do a lot of other things. A lot of other ideas. If instead of our, sign up at a lake house, we could have an LCD that displays what board meetings are coming up, what events are happening, the lake house is open, whatever the case.
Right.
Tommy and I are both tech people, and we like the tech because it streamlines our normal process. However, tech costs money, and so trying to streamline this a little at a time. We've done, because you spent, $24,000 on security stuff this year and access stuff. This is $16,000 for upgrades of other things. Next year, I'm sure we're gonna probably have to talk about replacing some computers and that kind of thing too. So, but this was, again, the blue stuff is negotiable. These are lofty ideas that I have, and this is what this discussion is about. You guys think I'm out in
Well,
left
it makes
field?
sense with the iPads, because we're getting them at work, because we have a system that we had made for us called Raxar.
Right, I know that, sorry, yeah.
Raxar, we use Raxar.
Okay.
And they wanted to put it on their phones. The problem is, I don't get a stipend for my phone.
Right.
It's my phone.
Right.
But they want me to put the Grets on here, and they want me to track myself and leave it on, and we can watch me walk around the building. I'm not doing that. So we're getting iPads too, because the electrical department needs it, the plumber needs it. We don't want to share. So I see what you're saying.
Yeah, there's a couple things here that would be optional. The iPads would be, if we're gonna wire this budget, would be the iPads and the check scanner and the document scanners, then kill the rest of it. The point is that I'm trying to be, here's the best case scenario, and we're gonna figure out what the worst case is after we look at the numbers, so. But there's where we're at. So we spent 2877.66 with $1,000 of it this month for office supplies. I'm just digging there a little bit.
Yeah, that's a
See, so, this services is just our QuickBooks and Zoom. Okay, we have QuickBooks monthly service, and then we have QuickBooks payroll service. They're separated under things, so we can track it a little bit better. Pool permits don't change, it's a fixed number. Vehicle registration's been $60 for a while, it doesn't change. Here's the contingency. Contingency is normally 10%. We have a $900,000 income, we have a 10% contingency, okay? That number can be lowered, but then it tightens the grip, and we end up at the end of the year with a problem with not enough money again, especially if inflation keeps blowing up, okay? So that's, those two orange numbers are the ones I'm saying we can dink with and see how it pays out, but I can promise you, you're not gonna see a huge change in the bottom line. It really isn't much change. Postage, we are now paying for postage. Believe it or not, we got pass-through postage, a bunch of it from the other thing that they didn't track separately. It's in that 5,000 catch-all category, but we probably spent $6,000 on postage last year through Associate. I'm anticipating 4 full mailings and 150 envelopes. I think I've even got it broken down here for you. I do. 4 full mailings of 1227. That would be the 5 without the 5 that haven't sold. 12 mailings of 150, when that's for late fees. Okay. That's what that postage comes out to be. Okay, I'm sure we'll blow that out of the water. Now, I do have a question, sidebar question. We now have a veto or something postage on our thing that we have a credit limit of $1,500. At some point, we're gonna have to pay that credit limit. It'll get deducted from our account. We spent 215, so it's not hitting, that 215 hasn't hit this year's postage. Whenever we get to that $1,500, they're gonna take it. So that's where that's gonna hit this, okay?
Mailings, honestly, I'm not sure. I'm glad you budgeted the way you do, but I really don't think we need to mail that.
Well, there's a few things we have to do by law, and a couple of those, if we do change it, the architectural bylaw, I mean, all that stuff is just one mailing. I'm just saying 4, possible 4,
Yeah, right.
possible 4. Okay, so I'd rather have too much in here and say, oh my God, look, we can take money from the postage and put it to Tommy's budget.
Oh,
So, anyway, so, printing is literally the per copy cost to use the printer, because we get charged a per copy cost to handle those mailings. And the copying is just additional copies for office, like we're making a copy to put someplace or give to somebody or check, whatever the case is. So that's what that number is. Moving down here, this is all pretty close to what we did before. So we had rentals in here, and these were rental expenses. We had 10,000 in social as a lump sum. I broke it down into rentals, materials, signage, services. Still $10,000, but I broke it down because I'd like to track where we blown the social budget up. Is it just in the rentals? That's saying that we did 4 D-Day trucks and another $900 one for the year. And then we've got some materials for whatever she's done. And then we've got signage, $3,200 for big banners and things that we want to do. And $1,000 for extra services we're doing outside.
no DJs.
No, what?
DJ, there was no DJ approved.
Oh my God, don't go there.
Yeah,
That's it. Wait, it's in the Tommy budget. The And so, the-
The social event budget.
okay, but remember, I gotta say this as plainly as I can. When the budgets get, if you've seen this if you've gone to a CDD meeting, you'll see what they do. They look at the budget and this is what we're gonna be doing from here forward, the first of the year. Okay, it's not in our budget, we can take it from this budget. I'm going to change the numbers on the fly, but this budget just lost $6,000, put to the other one, so we can see what's left in the budget. The problem is we haven't been tracking that way. Associate didn't do it that way. We didn't have real-time accounting. We do now.
And I understand that, that makes perfect sense to why we are where we are. But yeah, when we say budget, I think budget's the wrong one. It was in the GL, it was budgeted in the GL.
Right,
We just didn't, we burned the cash in other places, so we had to draw against it.
right. You draw against it because you burn it someplace else.
Well, when I was asking, back a couple months ago, when I was asking what the GL balance, so I know what I actually spent for the year. I wasn't asking, so I
And I
knew.
stumbled
What
because
was in there?
I don't know what this associate said.
I wanted to know what was spent for the year, not how much was spent.
I got it, but now I know these things. I can show you in a heartbeat.
Which means,
And you can look in a heartbeat yourself.
well, yeah, one last question. What's your plan on getting these GL items in the budget into that folio?
As soon as we approve this,
As soon as we-
because I'm done trying to reconstruct. This is the best reconstruction we could do. And we spent a whole lot of time getting this pretty accurate. We
Sounds
did.
okay?
Yeah, just need to stand up a second.
Another pair.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, just make sure. So, email, that's the Microsoft, stuff that we do. That's the kind of what it pans out to be right now. We spend $44.37 is what we're being charged per month. Plus, I think I've got another item in there, if I'm not mistaken.
One thing you need to add on there is Adobe.
I'm sorry?
Adobe.
I would argue that fact, and I'll tell you why. PDF Expert is a one-time fee of $79 and does everything Adobe does.
Look at it.
Look at it, please.
Yeah, I know. I use Adobe, so I generally use my.
I'm trying not to get subscriptions if we can get away from it. So, but look at that. I use it constantly. I love it. It works fine. I recommend it to my clients because I like Adobe, but Adobe's really. Okay, so wages, this is based on real numbers at this point. I broke out the taxes because we have a liability for the taxes that they used to call the burden fee on associate. The taxes are being paid automatically at the moment. Here's the thing. Last year, we did not include a pool person in our budget. This year, I don't have a pool person in our budget. So if we want to change the labor to add a pool person, now would be the time to consider it.
I want to, before we get to that's a good question, but before we get to that, I want to look at the end numbers and see where we are. Because the fact of the matter is, we have a lot of issues that are either, we could solve a whole person issue, right? And I'm gonna lean back a little bit on security, because security solves whole issues along with a lot of other issues. We can kill two birds with one stone by going back to my original security request.
Killing birds is illegal.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, mountains.
I'm just saying, but if the numbers are ridiculous and we're not gonna do it, then we look at the alternative. We do need someone for the pool. There's no, Kathy, I know you're smirking, but everything's broken there, and it's because no one is monitoring the pool.
Well, just the liability, imagine.
Well, they're not a lifeguard.
Is that-
They're not like.
No, but what happens since, they do tend to go there at night and something happens to the individual.
But even that,
But
that's security.
that's not a,
Yeah,
I was
we're
gonna
not gonna
say,
have
that's
an
not
attendant.
intended at night. That doesn't have anything to do.
Well, I could tell you without a doubt, what our issue is on our amenities, and it's gonna get even bigger once we open up this in January 1st. Without a doubt, we don't have anyone closing the facility, anyone cleaning the facilities, anyone checking what people are doing throughout the day, period. You're gonna see more and more problems. Guaranteed more things gonna be broken.
Okay, so what I would like from somebody to put in this budget then is what hours you think and what, they will be spending on it. Because I need to put it in the budget also.
And that's why I said, let's look again, because if we're talking just a pool person, I gotta look back and think about that. If we're talking security, my original quote was right around 9,000 per year for the security. They'll take care of your parking over at Westlake. They'll take care of all types of problems.
That's $78 per head.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we'll circle back on that, but
Another idea for revenue that I thought about the pool. We fix up that room a little bit, pool attendant, right? Get some microwaves. Why aren't we doing food out there? Why aren't we selling goggles out there? Why aren't we selling earplugs? I'm just there working and I've had 10 people a day asking me for goggles.
I gotta say this line since you said goggles. My mom used to tell me that cleanliness was next to godliness. I looked it up, goggles is next to godliness, I got my face slapped.
Food for thought, with a little bit of investment in that, and we could have some money.
Okay. All right, so two things to think about there in this. So, I broke down the insurance in its three phases. I also included the vehicle, because we have a vehicle policy on our liability policy for, sorry?
So you say. You're not
How
allowed
did they
to-
stop gas?
Something went to sleep over there.
Fine.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's chrome, it went to sleep.
It went to- it went flat.
Hey, look at that, it works
There
again.
it goes.
See, I did a purple screen for you, aren't you impressed?
I appreciate that.
Okay, so this little services pull down is showing you that this is the QuickBooks payroll portion, so you can see what that's for. Okay, so, moving down on the insurance, we have a policy on our insurance that, for personal vehicles used for HOA purposes. That includes your car, or your car if you're driving the property, or JR's vehicle if he's driving the property. I broke that out because I wanted that vehicle policy to be apparent to people that we do have that coverage, and also the work cart is in here as well. So, that's good. I went through the policy tooth and nail to try to find out if we could make a claim for the hurricane, and the answer is we cannot. We do not have hazard coverage that covers hurricane.
We don't.
We don't, and I looked in the cost effectiveness of it, and they won't even offer it to the HOA. We can try other insurance carriers, but they won't offer it to us.
This move.
No, for any of our HOA properties, period. They're not underwriting, I'm pretty sure because of this hurricane, they're probably not gonna be underwriting for a long time here, so.
We have that.
Yeah. It was an offering, that even the house we were allowed to elect it, but probably now, you're probably right, probably not. Be wrong.
I do have it in my, yeah.
Oh, I made sure they get that in there.
Yeah,
Yeah, as soon as I can find a way to make it available, we'll price it, and that's why I said, do you want to know about insurance carriers? I said, yes, so, yeah. Okay, so that's something that we need to know. We have workers' comp included in our general liability. That's part of that $779 a year. It will go up a little bit. All these will go up just a teeny bit. So I built those numbers into these increases already. I looked at the new rates. Yeah, we're doing that. You want to scroll up?
No, I was just looking at the previous.
Oh,
There was
previous
nothing
ones.
in there.
It hasn't changed a whole lot.
Oh, okay.
We budgeted on this, the total was
Oh, you
30,
broke it down. Okay, I see it. now.
right, we spent 25 and then I broke it into pieces and it's actually 40 at this point, giving the increases. That's where you're seeing the number.
Okay.
increase. And it's also including the 730 for the card. Okay, so this is not going to change much. We looked up increases for electric this year. There are going to be some increases. The good thing is that our budget last year was fat, assuming there were going to be bigger increases, and we only spent this much, so I increased it to almost the same number, breaking it down by grounds, facilities, and streetlights. The electric will go up again in January. It is nominal this time. It's not as big as the last hike. The gas will go up again, so these are all been compensated for, so these numbers are pretty real at this point. We don't have phone, we do have internet, that's the new internet. This is the total for the year. We're spending about $95 a month for internet right now, which is awesome.
Wow.
So, it's really awesome. So that's a great savings, because we were spending almost $400 a month for each line before.
that's all three.
For all three. That's awesome. Yeah, each line is, you've got the slower feed, but it's only $40 for, and then
That's right.
they bundle it. Remember they bundle it? Yeah. So,
Well, 700.
yeah,
700.
so we're paying 700 for the other one. So that was how we justified some of it. The security budget changes, was part of that budget. The sad thing is it's taken us longer to execute it, so that the overlap has been longer than we expected. So we didn't see the savings this year, but we will next year. And Spectrum does not prorate. So even though I canceled it right at the first of the month, I didn't get it before the first of the month, so therefore I have to pay a full month for October. Thank you very much.
Who do you have now for two?
Frontier, so we have now. Okay, so none of these are really anything earth shattering. Let's talk about the blue numbers. Okay, contracted services are fixed. Repairs, we left out the same budget we did. We did spend $7,400 a share, put 7,000 in there because if we do some of these improvements, we probably won't have these repairs. Also, they coded some things in repairs that are basically the trees and so forth. I've broken that out. When we were going with the arborists that I quoted to get the trees removed after the hurricane, several of them walked with me and showed me the problems that we really do have, that things when we got turned over from the builder were not done correctly. And there are widowmaker branches. I can point them out to you now that he's shown them all to me, and it makes me nervous walking through there. But the widowmaker branches that are dead, they're hanging over the walkways at the lake house. There are sunrise trees that need to be removed. So this improvements is to try to beautify some of the bad landscaping that's around us and the vine encrusted areas that we want to try to clean up. The tree trimming is just the tree, trim the dead out to try to figure out if we can get those widowmakers out. And then there's tree removal that I think there's 4 or 5 trees in there. So these numbers are based on trying to make this section nice again. Wait. Make America great again. That's all right.
Less of the.
Make Bischoff great again. So the but to try to clean this up. So again, they're negotiable, but they're put in here because they're realistic, and because we had the ability of walking with arborists for free while I was trying to get the trees assessed, it was a good time to think about it. In addition to that, further down in this, you'll see that I've added a $3,000 review study for the trees. There is a service that does, it's by hours, usually about 2,000. So I put 3,000 in. They will go in and walk all the properties, tell us which ones have to go, which ones will survive, which will need to be pruned correctly to survive, and give us an assessment that we can give to the arborist and say, what's this cost? So I built that into the numbers as well.
And that you only have to do once every 2 years.
Right. That's every 3 years, just like the reserve study they recommend. Some will go 5 on the trees, but here, because of hurricanes, it probably be prudent to look at it more often. Had we done some of this in the past, we wouldn't have had the falls and the shock. Okay, so I'm trying to be proactive here on the trees. That's what these numbers are.
How about that irrigation stance for irrigation? That's centralized control.
Hey, you're there. Look at the next numbers.
Well, wait, we jumped over the insect control.
We pay for that now.
Is that a annual?
$546 a month from Sunrise.
Yeah, those numbers may change in the next 2 weeks because some
Our contract
of the
numbers.
new contract numbers for this year.
And that would fall into our contingency, but before we approve this budget, if they give us the contract, I can adjust the numbers. So the,
Why we saw them the last week actually spraying.
well, we've been hammering them. I mean, we really have been hammering. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been doing that, yeah.
Between Patty and I, we're hammering these guys pretty hard. So the contracted service for irrigation, we pay $400. This is something that I don't understand. We pay $400 a month to inspect our irrigation system.
Mhm.
When they find something wrong, they charge us $500 or $600, $700, $800, $1,000, $1,500 to fix it. So we're paying them to pay them.
To find something wrong.
I have an issue with that. I would assume that the inspection would give us.
Especially to be included in their home.
Right, so the inspection would also give us a breakdown, this is what we think you need to repair, what do you want to do?
Mhm.
We're not doing that because we have in our contract, up to $3,000 is automatically approved.
300.
They think it's 3,000, I'm telling you, that's what I was told by 2 of them now. It
Really?
does say 300, that's what the contract says. They don't want to send out an approval for $300. I literally received 26 new invoices from them yesterday. Invoices.
What are the numbers? Yeah.
I am from 400 to 1,500, so say $800. Okay,
They don't want to do that, but they're good.
these ones, no, they're not,
These
they're
are
not,
invoices,
these are
not proposals.
automatically paid for, they're not approved by anybody, we're just paying for
Think of it as a socio all over again with the.
On top of their normal monthly.
them. Yes. So I've held all these invoices, a good chunk of them are Sagewood.
Right.
But I've held all these invoices, there are 19 that I have in the system, I'll put 26 more in this weekend. I need explanations. I mean, holy crap, I mean, we're talking that we've got $20,000 already sitting to pay them. this is gonna be another 20 grand easily. So $40,000 out of our budget, and we had a $750 irrigation repair for the master. I mean, this is crazy.
Well, they need to stop doing that.
Okay, so
When's the contract up? So we negotiate.
What?
at the end of the year,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
we may negotiate at this point that but we've been meeting with them on Wednesdays. I've been coming meeting with Patty and Tom. Tom is great, by the way. I think he's working for the wrong company, but I think he's a good guy. He's trying really hard to make this work. He even tells me when he gives me a quote and I said, well, geez, I can get it done for half price. He goes, I just can't compete with that because they farm everything else, so they have to mark it up. So, I mean, I got tree grinding done for 12 stumps for $2,200. Are you kidding me?
Well, we need to stop them if they think that they're allowed to do it or not, and.
Can you hire two separate?
We've been doing separate things. I've been.
No,
Yeah.
two different companies.
No, we have them.
Oh, I thought it was Sunrise Irrigation and then.
Yeah, Sunrise does the irrigation and landscaping contract.
Yeah.
We could do maintenance with them and do, someone else do the repairs and irrigation. But this is the common thing. They've got us on retainer. And Tommy's right, it's easier to deal with the retainer than it is to go find a quote. It takes more effort. But when the quote's twice and 3 times what we can save, now it's worth it. So they've started to see that more and more. A couple times we've said, hey, we got a quote for half of yours. Okay, we'll do it for that.
On the large ticket items, it makes perfect sense, but on the minor irrigation stuff. I think it's better to have under one. Unless,
Well, and the other issue on the,
unless you separate your irrigation from your maintenance. So if your maintenance is Sunrise and your irrigation is like Ballinger, legitimate irrigation.
That's what she's saying. Why would you, we could consider that.
Sorry.
no, I was going to add on to this, the issue about the irrigation is all these individual irrigation repairs that we're getting is what is causing these broken heads? Is it their damage when they're not personally used? And if so, why are we getting it? There's so many. It's just a thing that about, you guys haven't heard that. I was like, and I've just been attending those ones.
I haven't had the chance.
Where's the missing link? I haven't been to the last two because I've been out of town. Meetings.
No, he's trying to be that guy. He is. He's trying to be the good guy. So the repairs are $8,000 because we spent $6,000. That's the repairs for irrigation. The $5,000 is upgrades to central communication.
That's enough for them.
For our system, it is. It's not for Sagewood.
You gotta think, you guys, they do.
But this is just.
So,
Yeah, I've got to put it in Sagewood. I got to put it in Westlake. I got to put it in all of them. And ours are just communication changes.
Right.
Sagewood is a complete overhaul, and it's, I think the price of the upgrade will offset replacing the sod next year. So it's justifiable, that's what I'm trying to say. So, but that's what this is. So you asked about it, I did build it in.
well, it also seems the extreme because everything else has been neglected last couple of years too, so.
I'm sorry, I don't understand that.
What do you need? The repairs that we need for the.
But this is the master, this is not
Every year, we wouldn't have to budget that high, you think so?
but
For repairs?
this is for the master only. This is not for Westlake, this is not. for
No,
Springfield.
I'm talking all together.
She's saying,
Once we get everything new and it's maintained right, do we?
Okay,
Well,
so-
we'll have that big of a line item for
This
next year.
particular item there is not a maintenance issue. It's an upgrade that we have control over the system instead of the landscaper only. Because what happens right now is landscapers should have adjusted a time they say they did, and that sprinklers going off.
I gotcha.
Yeah, don't understand spending too much money on water, going to ponds. The grass is dying, and then we have to replace it. Things like that, if we had centralized control, we could see exactly what zone, what time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because that was so-called neglected in the past, and now we're on top of it getting.
Okay, so
checking
if I understand what you're trying to say, Jennifer, it says, if this year next year we're budgeting for it. the following year, we won't have that expense
Yeah.
because we've already
Yeah.
paid for that. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Improvements are usually typically a one-time expense or not over the next year. The repairs, though, I can promise you, at the rate of PVC pipe, and I'm not exaggerating, I think Will can back me up on this. PVC pipe last year for a 10-foot stick was $4. PVC pipe today for the same stick is $31.
Yeah.
That's why this number is getting out of control. I mean, it really is out of control. You know, you come in, oh yeah, I got, it's $1,000 in pipe, and I'm like, really? And then you do the math, like, it's $1,000 in pipe, holy crap, you know? So it's a lot of money, so that's why that number's got inflated, and that's why it went up to $6,000 this year. It really is. Now, their irrigation labor is $85 an hour, that's what they charge us. $85 an hour. Just wanna let you know.
Absurd.
Okay, so
That's with your heart.
yeah, that's with me out there showing them how to use the
Where the-
timer. I know. it's
things are-
fascinating.
I think it's an absurd dollar amount for some,
Hey, cheaper than a plumber, though.
they're not, they're not paid irrigation.
Okay, so this stuff hasn't changed much here. Fire prevention, HVAC. I put HVAC $2,400 for a monthly or bi-monthly contract that could come down, which is gonna do 6 months.
Right.
That's what that is. The rest of the stuff is based on our burn that we're already doing. We're not really spending any extra here. We went over the top on janitorial for some reason. I don't know why. It came down about month 6 because we changed the company, and now we're looking at doing another company here and so forth.
I wonder with the janitorial that the reason why it was so high too was because we had the lapse from when Bob left before we had JR. So we had the janitorial company coming and cleaning.
So there's a lot of that.
Right,
Okay.
they were here more often than the one time a week because we had no maintenance.
Okay,
Here's
so
another side note into improvements. We have to get rid of our paper towel dispenser.
okay,
We are burning through paper, and I go to pull one sheet, I get half that.
Okay.
They need,
so we either need an auto sheet feeder one, something like that,
either
right?
a cheap auto one or a dryer or whatever.
No, okay, so I can price those and put those into an improvement budget. So those are a couple things we've added here. All right, so moving on from those numbers, they're not really anything strange. So pool management, we're paying $1,700 a month for the pool management. Are we okay with pool management? Anyone have problems with our pool management company?
I don't have a problem with them. I think one of the initial ideas was that JR could at some point just take over the pool maintenance altogether. And we'll keep pool management around for instance, the splash pad rigs. We need to get that involved. They have the contracts for that.
Okay, and I'm gonna go back a couple steps here because we premised the HVAC system with JR doing it, and JR's capabilities for the HVAC system is going in, looking for condensation, pulling the filters out, cleaning them, putting them back in. Does he have the ability of doing pressure checks?
For the AC.
Okay, because that's where we found that there's a leak. So, so let's talk about pool. I'm not discounting JR, I'm just trying to say that what we get with and $1,700 is steep. What we get with a pool guy is that when we have to, change the sand and the filter, and they have to pull that thing apart and flush the system and pour the sand through the filter system and drill that.
I'm saying we should.
Okay.
I'm just saying, maintenance, like for instance. JR could do the weekly chemical maintenance. We don't necessarily need a maintenance company for that, but you could put down on a schedule. A water checklist sheet, right? So every 3 months you have, you check your pressures on your tanks. If you are due for a sand flush or a deep flush and you need to be rebuilt, you don't have JR to do that. You contact, whomever.
Okay, so you're saying rather than doing the monthly normal maintenance, you're just gonna do the quarterly or
Yeah,
yearly
you just-
maintenance.
Well,
We're gonna do that with the HVAC too, I think, is what we decided to do with the HVAC, right? Pat? We kind of decided to do that with the HVAC, to have them come, do the pressures every once in a while, give us an assessment.
Have at least a once a year full assessment done, all plumbing looked over. You know.
Tuna.
Okay, for now, we've got this contract and it doesn't expire till April. And so we're stuck with it unless we do something different. At that point, it would be a windfall to make the savings, so I'm gonna leave it the way it is until we have a plan.
Which is fine, 'cause I don't think JR is ready to take over weekly maintenance.
Okay.
I know he's in the process of it.
Here's that HVAC thing. I put $10,000 into replacing 2 coils and a compressor.
Which one is that here?
That's this one and the one across the hall here. Both have leaks. This compressor is crashing, and here when it turns off, the bearing clangs, which means if the pressure drops low enough, the bearing will fall, it'll burn it up, and we'll have to buy a compressor. This one just has a leak so far. If the pressure starts getting lower, it's gonna be the same problem. So it's something that we have to do at some point, and it is not a reserve item. It's a maintenance item. Replacing the whole system is a reserve item.
Mhm. So what's the price difference between the two if you just get a fixed asset versus?
Replace a commercial unit, $60,000.
Oh, it's commercial.
That whole wall back here behind this TV is that.
Oh, okay, I just didn't know what was. Mm.
So it's in there because I talked to a technician and he's telling me this is everything. And I believed him because I saw the oil leak on the coil. I looked at the pressure gauge with him. I have a little knowledge, not a great amount of knowledge of air conditioners, but I know when they're leaking. Mind you, mine stopped working last night, so whatever.
I bet you it's a little compressor, because those go out every 2 years on those things.
There is a
System.
capacitor, you're talking about the capacitor thing that.
Yeah, that-
That's a common thing to blow, but that's not what ours is.
Ours
It's
is-
cooling, so the capacitor's kicking on, it's not cooling well, which means there's a leak on my second unit, which I just had the other one repaired for 5 grand. Sorry, I digress.
Mhm.
So, okay, so we have some pool maintenance stuff in here, that's for supplies and so forth. I upped this, assuming, because you had this conversation with me about possibly JR taking over, so we'd have to buy some things for him to take over. So that's in there, but can be removed if we don't do what we're doing. So,
That's
that's
a 3,000.
3,000.
Yeah, I would pull
That's
it.
only like.
Well,
we-
$1,000 increase, spent 2,800.
Last year we spent $2,800.
That's last time.
But that's not pool maintenance equipment.
No, this is-
That's where they build it.
This is just pool maintenance, period, not equipment. This-
Oh, yeah, that needs to go higher. The splash pad broken.
Okay, so what number was it? See there?
I have no idea. I hate that. I don't know, what did I ask to repair it on?
We spent 2872.
$2,800. That dude's gotta go at least up to $6,000.
Okay, I will increase it right now. So I had a question about that. You answered it. I thought it was lofty. I just went with what we spent.
I didn't realize the pool repairs were in the middle.
Okay, so moving down to fixtures being fitness equipment, pet stations, furnishings, that kind of stuff, security stuff, like someone breaks a camera, we have to replace it. Which that's gonna happen. So these numbers aren't too far off what we did last year. The one that's in here is furnishings, because we bundled the furnishings for the chairs and the umbrellas and things we bought last year into that catch-all category again. We spent about $3,600 on umbrellas, chairs and replacements and things. We also have furnishings out here that had disappeared by the fire pit, stuff like that, that's gonna be in there.
So just for instance, I wanted to at some point do start a meeting where we walk around the pool and then end up here. Make sure everything's, the furniture at the pool is horrible.
Okay,
It's what?
It's
Horrible.
I would agree with you,
Oh.
but I'm trying to be conservative in some things. We can't blow everything up all the same.
I know you want it, but when I say horrible, I mean, there's gonna be no furniture there in 2024.
It's not bad.
Okay.
It's crap.
We're not gonna hit it, it just won't be.
Now, mind you, that in 2023, our reserve study has, from the funding that we're doing, has resurfacing the pool.
I don't think we need a pool resurface. Especially not in 2023, but. Per the conversation when we were talking about splash pad. That splash pad costs us a lot of money to keep repairing every year. I don't know what the cost is to replace.
Kind of saws off.
something different.
Yeah, saw it
And the pool maintenance, what's his name, Sean, yeah, Sean, the pool guy.
John, the other
Sean,
one,
the pool guy.
he's SEM.
Oh, Google, okay.
That's when you get your
He
team.
was saying point blank, don't even look at the splash pad until you're resurfacing it. Which makes some sense. It's all kind of built in there and the surface is all mortared in there. So, I don't know, I don't think I really is. But I do know the pool needs a ton of work this year. It's not gonna make it 124. Everything's cracking. And it's not so much the full service, it's everything around.
Okay, well, we have a big number in the reserve for this year to spend on it.
Okay, right.
And the pool is, when we're doing component, it's pool, period. It's not pool one item in the pool. So he's got $96,000 expected to spend on the pool this year.
Yeah.
Next year.
Yes,
Well, yeah,
this coming year.
this coming budget.
New furniture around the pool, the entire structure needs to be repaired, that's for sure, all the cracks and repairs around the retaining wall in there.
Your house looks at the pool, right?
Oh, it does, that's it, right? But I've been working in there so often, I can tell you, it's in very bad shape. All the vents, all the drainage are cracks. I mean, I'm waiting for a kid to cut the foot in.
Okay.
They're all cracked.
Well, somebody I saw said their child stepped in a hole.
Probably what I'm thinking.
Well, that was outside.
That was out.
That was out.
That was sidewalk, yeah.
You got these vents going around and they're all cracking. Just as I'm there working on camera, the kid's coming up, oh, here's saw off the ladder. And I'm collecting parts in that room of stuff that should be on the floor. And it's-
So, okay, but question, the repairs, all the stuff that you were talking about, repairs, that would be reserved. But I don't see the furniture being coming out of the.
There
reserve.
is, the furnishings are in the reserve study, and we can replace some of them, for normal wear, but not all of them. Like the umbrellas don't count, and certain things that have normal wear that should be maintenance items, but some of the furnishings.
Let me ask you, what portion of the umbrellas do just a cover?
I don't think the umbrellas are all count, because they get blown and bashed and so forth, as a conservative maintenance item, but the normal tables and reclining chairs and so forth are covered. So according to his study, so he's got it in the study as part of a reserve.
Most of it is probably reserved.
A good chunk of it's gonna be, if we don't have to do the resurfacing, it's still budgeted to do that. We can look at the itemized detail on the reserve study, and I can tell you for sure, but I went through it last night at about 5 AM and was looking through it to make sure that I hadn't missed anything on it. But it's pretty robust. I mean, he's covered almost everything in the pool to be covered. There's only a few things that aren't really covered, basically. Stuff that he considers to be normal maintenance. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, moving on from that item. So the other two items that are not just from budget at this point, we talked about janitorial services and so forth earlier, that we're all past that.
but before we move on, can I go back to the fitness equipment?
Sure.
You had it there on the screen. There had been talk at one of the board meetings about upgrading fitness equipment that people were saying needed, not that I use it for this, but there had been.
People want an upgrade. Heather was originally working. I don't know what she did. She was tasked.
Working the same way as fun.
Was tasked with finding out what that cost might be to sell back the equipment, get into some sort of a release program, get updated equipment in there. The equipment in there has aged. You know, we see the breakdowns of them coming in, but it is aged equipment. People are requesting it. The carpet is a little.
It smells funky when you walk in there too.
So that's one thing that needs to be addressed.
I
I
just,
think I talked about this at some point, but I think it was week one for.
yes, but there was a proposal I just got from FitRec in the, I just got it yesterday.
Okay,
For leasing.
and does that have numbers?
It's us.
Okay, thank you.
So, could it survive another year? Probably. I would put the pools at a higher priority than that, but depending on the number, it's doable.
What's the number?
Oh, there's a few different numbers. She gave us a lease for.
Okay, so we should probably address that before we try to get to the finalization of this budget of any kind, because I'd like to see. what
Tell me,
that
do you
would
want to open your, tell me, November?
Come out of the,
They bought the.
reserve.
Some-
Tell me
Um,
November.
be. If we go to a lease situation, then of course it doesn't, but,
Have it for the November.
but I don't know what they're talking about replacing, what are you guys talking about replacing? Tell me.
Oh, the actual,
I know, I mean, everything, or just the treadmills, I mean. what-
see, my original thought was, instead of owning it, lease it all. This way it gets a
You don't
refresh
have to-
every 3 or 4
Right.
years. Because that's the problem, right? I can't even put the TV on there. These are old co-ed.
If the lease is $5,000, that'd be great.
Per month or per year?
I never said it was gonna happen. It was a thought.
I just grab my ankles when I walk in and.
I don't know.
I think we're for business.
It's in your phone.
Yeah, my folder, and then the town meeting board meeting in November.
Okay, well, we can sit down and we can sit down, and talk, Tommy, and figure out what you guys doing, and when we're ready to present this, we can tell what the numbers for. I'm all for doing something, we get it updated. We have a lot of people use that.
Especially for roads, don't have to worry about it.
Functional.
They used to understand. You were paying that.
I could program an iPad, had the same movie running all the time and stick it on.
Well, I was trying, I was hoping I could hook up Google TVs to it, but
And when you, well, can you use your Bluetooth with the TV?
no, they don't have any.
Bluetooth.
Yeah, as I said, they're kind of aged out.
I probably have RGA.
That's what it is. That's my problem. I was looking at RCA. Converter.
Yeah,
It's bad.
I'm sorry, Patty, I'm not saying it, but.
Okay, I didn't mean, I just, yeah, but now you want to keep going, but
I've just,
it was something that
I knew we couldn't get through this within a couple hours, just a very detailed budget issue. I've really broken this down further than we've ever seen it before. But really, but, I would like to have the discussion at the bottom line here, because that's what we're really talking about here. What things do we want to try to, we're talking about adding things to this point, that's fine. But let's look at how it affects bottom line if we add some more things to it. So,
Outside of the main thing is the pool and this thing was.
so we're also bottom of the list here, and, I've got some general stuff in here because the landscape lighting was part of that general expense.
Okay,
Because basically, they do need to be replaced, the lights that they have are antiquated, there's much better options, they're less expensive than we're doing to buy that light anymore.
well, and Will said that he had a contact that could,
Yeah, my thing is that at our building, because it's kind of like this, you have to save money, because you don't have a lot of money. So you can go to a vendor and say, oh, they're $450, I can call City Electric and all these, and they're like $500-600 a fixture. Well, with Fudikin, I'm buying them for $100,
Right.
$150, and this guy's giving me a 3 to 5 year warranty, so if anything happens, get a brand new fixture.
So I've looked at, Apex is a company that's out of Canada, and their prices are way better than anything I've seen locally. And they make all cast aluminum stuff, so it's really nice, and it's not $200 a light, it's $100 a light, it's
Right.
$50 a light, depending on what you buy, and they're bright, and they're RGB, so you can have a color show if you wanted to, I mean, all this stuff. There's ways to save money on this, but that's a whole research project that I would hope you could get involved in. So
Because also too, you want to know the warranty, if you see, we use Fudikin in ours, we've been using for years. I can call Mike up and say, hey, I got a light that's flashing, he goes, okay, which one is it? It's on the road to me. There's no, send it back to my factory, we're gonna look at it and make sure.
And
you
that's,
didn't do
that's
something
my
wrong.
experience with this company is that every time I called them and had a problem with something, they just, no problem, I'll ship it to you. And I like that because I don't have time. I don't,
Just to give you an idea on the stuff, 1432 a month.
Yeah.
Just a minute.
and that's leasing all the equipment that we need in there.
Except the dumbbells, right?
Except the dumbbells are done.
It's a fence, but I don't think we can call them that.
We also have another quote here for 72,000
It's expensive.
straight out.
That piece.
Oh, okay.
so another 2,000 to lease?
No, no.
No,
To own it.
and that's about what it would cost to replace it. There's no question about that, but, yeah.
I have another company coming this week. I found them today too.
Okay, and that was for 60. It went up to 2,200.
All right, so that's an open item that we can discuss further down the road here as we get some information on it. I love the idea, I just, I want you to see what it does to the bottom line. Okay, so,
You need to put it back up there.
yeah, I know, I
I'm
was
sorry.
waiting because it just keep blanking out of it.
Sorry.
I can sit here and it doesn't like me and I get it.
Oh, don't
I
encourage.
have never been accused of not following bounds. Okay, so we were talking about general, and I put $3,000 in tools. The intent was to buy some good 24-volt tools and a chop saw and some ladders. And that's what that number is. That's a pretty solid number to get some decent things for us to work with here, rather than using as personal. There's a liability with the personal, there's also the possibility that we've got to make sure that things are safe. We have an OSHA requirement because we're employers at this point. There's things that I wanted to worry about there.
Where do we put this stuff?
We have a source, so we have the
A little bit, we get one of the pool. There's some stuff here, pool, come over here, we don't have much.
it's not really, I mean, you're talking about chop saw and hand tools and some ladders, that'll fit over here pretty easily. So, we've got stuff in there now. He's got an old aluminum extension ladder that looks like it's a death trap to me, but, okay. So, anyway,
I
so
thought Mac had stuff that he was also paying to that.
he did, he mentioned that, that he might want to donate to or help with that. And, I've always told him that he can use some of my tools if he needed to, because I've got all that stuff and then some. But anyway, this is me thinking what we need to make the job right. So that's what it is. Okay, so let's go down a little bit further here. Here's the next blue item, and I'm gonna go over that next.
Yeah, you mentioned those two, the 2,000, because everybody was looking when they were talking about the trees. They're like, where's the 2,000?
Yeah, someone was typing in the middle of the night and then several typos now that I found I'll have to fix. But the,
Don't put that.
Nobody's putting any fingers on you, haven't.
so, anyway, that's what that number is. It's not anything fancy. It was me anticipating that we go out of our pocket, come back at some point, so I'll put it in the budget as expense and later on it will be an income.
Mhm.
Arborist study, we talked about that. I don't think any more explanations put in there. We jumped down this at the beginning. Here's the reserves that are recommended by the reserve study. No painting because we just painted and we'll have painting budget for 2024 to put into the reserves. But we don't have a gate monument, we don't have any fencing, especially not gray or black fencing. But we do have, we
We did it.
we did, yeah, we did. But we have, all these other items that are part of the, the master's budget. Let me tell you how big this has changed. We were literally contributing $800 a year to the reserves up until this point. And we brought that up, I mean, $8,000 a year to this point for everything, this building, the streets, all of it, the pool pumps, the pool. That's what we were contributing. It's a ridiculous number. So now we're gonna have to play catch up, and it's gonna take us a number of years to get there. That number is low because when the builder built it, they wanted to keep the dues low, and the good thing is that the sub builders, the ones that built up all the other neighborhoods, Westlake, et cetera, are pretty close to being what this guy came up with, and they're not going to affect them very much. This is the one that takes the hit, and that's where you're seeing the difference in income right there. Let's throw that in there. Now we went from $688,000 to $945,000 in expenses. So what's it do to our budgets? At the bottom here, I've given you what the annual would be and the monthly would be and what the percentage of increase. Last year, we increased 31%. This year, we're looking at 27%. That's also attributing that we had a 10% inflation rate and we had costs for the hurricane and things that weren't actually part of our normal thought. If we put the contingency, it goes up to about 31%. Okay, and that number becomes from $746 to about $800 a month. I mean, per annum. And then because we're talking about 5240, right? That we've got, I said that wrong again.
Yeah.
Yes.
5420.
5420.
I'm sorry, I'm inverting that. That would be added to this bottom line. So the guys that take the biggest hit are the retaining wall people. And the reason why is we've got nothing in the retaining wall budget. And he's got $6,627 for retaining wall reserve this year. So they only, the difference between them and us last year, the 36 houses this affects.
We could push that out, that one each retaining wall, instead of funding so fast.
But it'll be a larger increase the following years.
How come it's such a big increase?
Because we didn't have enough funding.
There wasn't enough funding
Okay.
in there,
But this is.
and it's got to be.
I got you.
No, that's just
That's 100% funding over the next 10 years.
10 years,
Oh.
okay, 10 years ago. So if you were to change the retaining wall from 10 to 12, what does that do?
Not a whole lot.
Okay.
I mean, you'd have to change it to 10 to 30 years, but the failures at 10
Okay, yeah,
years.
so not 30 years is not.
But I'm saying, the failure is at 10 years.
Ah,
So that's why he's doing it.
for the-
at 10.
At town.
So if you walk the walls, have you looked at them?
Once or twice in the past
Okay.
year.
So they're not failing terribly, but they are going to, you can tell. And now, if you talk about the chain walls in another place, that's meeting, but but they're, typically walls, the way they put them together in Florida, the land pushes out, it starts to settle, they start to lean, they crumble, they fall, you have to dig them out, put them in again. That's what this number is for.
Okay.
So it's a terrible number.
How come the roofing's so low when you mentioned like if we
Because
had
we funded the
hurricane
roofing
damage?
better than we did anything else
What,
in the past.
I'm just saying that's a small amount. If we don't have coverage for the hurricane, where does that money come from?
It's a roofing for this roof. is what we're
Yeah,
talking
so
about.
if we don't have coverage through the insurance, where does the
It
difference
comes from the
come?
reserve, but,
Mhm.
okay, so we
It's
were
just this-
funding $1,000 a month, $1,000 for per annum, and we have about $90,000 in that component already. So
Okay,
this is amortized over what we already have funded compared to where it needs to be.
I understand now.
So now you're seeing the general, which has the pool in it.
Mhm.
I mean, not the pool, but the $58,000 was 90 some odd $1,000 we needed to be funded. But because we put that $75,000 back, they screwed up into the pool budget, it reduces to 58.
Okay.
So this is what the balance would be due over the next life of the item. So let's
I got
give you
you.
an example. Pool's life is 2 years at this point, is what they're telling us. It's gotta have major maintenance done in the next 2 years. We gotta come up with $58,000 to do that, so now he's saying, gotta do 58,000.
Gotcha.
It's a lofty goal, but it's what it is, and if we fail, here's the option, you don't do it this way, it's not required by law for us to do this way in Florida, but
Mm,
if you don't do it this way, when the pool fails, we have to go out and say, everyone, please give me $2,000.
This community can't afford that.
I know, I realize, I'm just saying, that's the result, to
I got
explain
it.
why we
Yeah,
do
I
it this way.
understand now.
In some states, this is required by law, we have to do this.
Mhm.
Florida hasn't adopted that yet. I wish they would.
So sorry, Brian,
As I say, have we made a firm decision that we can't use the pooling approach? Because some of these things are so far behind, and they're all gonna fail at different times, but using the specific replacement, it puts more pressure on the current contribution, depending on how each thing's fail and needed.
No, I entirely agree with you. The pooling method also does, so I'll explain for those who don't know what the difference is. Component method says we have to put this much money for the major components, each separate kind of thing. The pooling says, this is what we think we're gonna need to fund to replace all this stuff over a period of time. It's all one big pile, spend it as you will. So basically, it sometimes, yeah, as you need it.
Mm,
But what happens is that the timing for the component tells us it's gonna be done in 5 years, we're gonna have this much money to cover for 5 years. The other one says, when you need it, there should be enough money to cover it because we've pulled all the other together. Both can work, but they need to be managed. But the problem with it is that I see with the pooling method, it doesn't lower the dues enough to make a big enough dent.
mhm.
When I looked at the difference per person per year, I mean, per person year was like $164 per year for the component method. And the pooling method was $141 for including inflation. It was 112 something without the inflation. So I would never do a pooling method without inflation. That seems silly. And you asked them to increase it to 6%, which is a wise move on your part. So the reality is this is $20 savings over the year per person.
So the application of it, and I'm not sure I agree with necessarily those numbers, but the application of it gives more freedom. The combination of collecting versus spending, because your goal is to make sure you have enough money on hand when these components are going to need it. And right now we're sitting in a situation where some of the components are needing it tomorrow, it
Mhm.
seems like, and so we might as well just put it directly in the budget not in a reserve. So by going with a pooling approach, what we're doing is trying to pool some of the stuff will not be needed for, say, 15 years. So we compensate for that by pulling some out now, but we continue to accrue to build it into for what we need in 15 years. So,
Okay,
it's
no, I mean, your description is perfect. I wanted to show them the numbers if I can. I'll try to zoom in on this as best I can. Just give me a second. So this is the pooling with inflation. Okay, so each one of these items, this is the category it falls in, the roofing, right? Then they sub each section down individually. They tell this is the funding maturity of the item. So this goes 30 years out. So we're gonna go down to where we're into the next couple of years here. So I've got to scroll back just a little bit. 2027, here's should be on the next 2 pages here. So this shows you some of the useful life of the equipment, 12 years, estimated life. So this is what's left. It's got 8 years already in it. Our present cost to replace it is this much money. And then they start showing you how it pools into where it has to come in. So when you get down to pooling funding, it starts to show you how it breaks down, okay? So this is per month, okay? And then per month, we don't do per month because we're doing quarterly. We probably will be this year, that's another discussion, but $8.12. The component method, if I go to the bottom, it's $11.14. So that's, do the math, that's the difference between the two. But this is with inflation. The other one saves more. So we could save $36, $40 by going to the pooling method per person in the membership. And that's perfectly fine if that's gonna make a big enough dent into the numbers. So that this number, this column is 2023, then that's 224, 225, so showing where it'll be changed as the years go on here. And these numbers are where it's useful, like we need to spend the money on something to fix it. So 23, 24, 25, 26. So this is the bottom line for this is $8.12 per unit per month. If I go down to component, which is all the way down to page 51, I believe. Hey, I remember that. Okay, so this carries it out. 2023, 1105 is per unit. It's not that huge of a savings. However, it does get some money to be able to move things around because we're not sure when things are going to fail because we're behind the gun. And that's kind of what John's trying to describe to you. It saves a few bucks and it gives more money to move around when we need it as opposed to when it tells us we have to spend it. Now, this is all just a guideline. There's no real rules. We're trying to follow a guideline that educated people put together to try to tell us how things should fail and when we should replace them. So it's a $3, less than $3 difference per month. And I'm all for it.
I like the idea of when it fails, the money's there, and like you said, shifting around money would be easier than.
But ultimately, okay, so I'm just saying, you could come in a pooling fashion because we're not written to the component except for the funding part of it. So what I mean by that is that there's no regulation that says we can't take from one pooling department to another, it's in the reserve. We can say that we'd have to refund that. We do a study to refund that if we take it from some other area. I don't have a difference between the way it actually pans out, really, I don't.
Because it's still in the same account. It's just you're budgeting for the cost of how long it's gonna last.
It changes how you fund it and how you run it.
That's all it is. It's all on paper.
so
It's all on paper,
That's
that's
all.
all it is.
what people normally think of, and I've encountered this in Encore all the time. They think about the specific item being reserved for. But they don't think about the fact that you may not need the money for this right now, and you will need the money for that. And overall, over a period of time, 15, 20 years, in the end, there's a certain dollar amount. And then this one's accumulating and you're not using it. And this one over here, you're using it and it's being diminished. So while this is continuing to accrue because you need it, you may need it 15 years from now. You have a shortfall on everything else. You have to accelerate it because it happened to crash earlier than you thought it was going to.
And what if you get rid of like, let's say you had something that you're building, you're building your reserve for, and then you realize, for whatever reason, you just don't need it anymore. So,
So we've done that with the fence in Westwood, it's gone.
but, so what happens with the reserve?
So what happens with the reserve is that, as it is with a specific identification, you still have to do periodic reviews. Because your total target as of a certain time is a certain dollar amount.
Right.
So as you're going along, some of these things, like we had the heaters for our pools. Had to be replaced. Because of maintenance issues, people were taking care of them, they crashed 4 years earlier than they should have.
Yeah.
So in the reserves, we could set aside to maintain these and to replace them at, say, 9 years. But because they didn't maintain it, didn't do a good job, we're having to replace it sooner. Now, in the pooling approach, we are not in trouble yet because we haven't usually borrowing for something else that we've still got a reserve of the building for. And if it's a specific use, we wouldn't be able to make a portion of that would have to be recovered currently. While what we had accumulated in there, which was 4 years short, we'll have to take out the 4 years that we're short is going to have to come out of the current operations. So through the pooling, we're able to basically leverage all the money that we have in there to take care of all the assets. And it just requires that you pay attention to what your target is for each year as you go along, because it may come out of one pocket that you didn't expect. But some of the others are not going to come out when you thought they were, they'll come out longer because you're going to maintain them better.
Right, and
Yeah,
I
so-
think the difference is though, is, and maybe Patty can give me some feedback on this, but the component is really designed to track each item as an individual thing, that's like you said. But the reality is that we have never really done that in the first place. We pull from the reserve, applying it to that general, but it's not in the timing because we never had a reserve study at this moment. So we started out with component with no reserve study. That it was one done, but not privy to us.
Right.
To know when that component was going to age or mature to be replaced. So we've literally done pooling whether we realized it or not. The only difference that on the back end is how it's funded. It is in the component method, it gets more money into the reserve up front. The other one, because realistically, we're doing 11 to 5. You saw the other one was $8 and change, and then was $8 and change, and it went up with $8.69, and went back to $8.14. In the third year, fourth year, we're at $8.94 on the component anyway. So really, what you're talking about is gaining a little bit of money on the front end. I don't care which way we deal with it. I don't think it's going to affect the bottom line. It does affect the way that we look at the reserve. $4 is not going to make a difference for what we're looking at. It's not really. Oh, does it? That's right. I think you told me that before. Yeah, we went through that. That's John. I forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me. It's in the charter.
It's in the charter, but the law says you can use either method.
Right, and the law also doesn't regulate it, so you could switch midstream if you wanted to. Right.
Well, don't some communities do that anyway, switch in the middle and something, you might say something else.
I have been doing that. I'm sorry. But
Well, as we get more clear on how our reserves should be managed, there is a possibility that portions of it, like long-term or short-term maintenance type
Yeah.
of things that are like we accumulate money for 3 years.
Sure.
Needed. That's more of a fixed identification, but the pooling approach goes to things like the building itself, the things like that, which have a 20-year life to it,
Yeah.
25-year life, and so the pooling part, along with the other things like the swimming pools and everything else, they get handled that way. I personally feel like that pooling takes some of the stress off the current dollars for the owners, for the homeowners. Even though if we were in business, I would say we would go to the more fixed approach. Because in business, we know we're going to be around. We want to make sure that that's done. On the other hand, meeting the requirements of the law, if we pool it, we still target is to make sure we have the money on hand when we need it. Kind of like the old Bill Clinton. I think Disney had it just in time, I think, Sam Walton.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
You know, so the pooling takes the approach that we have a target that we're shooting for. And when the items come out of it, we take it out as the current dollars, but when we start including it in the pool again, we include it with the new dollars, because more than it is, and we're still shooting for that target. And then we review it about every 3 to 4 years to make sure that the pool is still big enough to cover our obligation for that period of time. But on the short term, we have the capability of, to a certain extent, it's not a huge amount in many cases, but showing the homeowners that we're trying to fit things when we're running behind, fit things in the right slot there, and they're not being charged along the way. This helps us to be able, even though it seems to be a relatively small amount, we can tell them we save the money on this by using the pooling approach and still be able to meet our requirements.
I just think, especially after this year, after the cleanup, maybe in, a year from now, we'll have a better.
It's not gonna be a year from now, we have to fund this, so, we can't, it's not an optional funding at this point, we either have to pick the $8.14 or 11.5. We already have funding for some of it, and so we have to collect it, but I'm gonna tell you that the $11 is not gonna affect an increase of 25%, it's a half percentage point. So, I mean, the $4.
Well,
So it doesn't matter to them, so I'm trying to say, whatever guys, where you wanna go, I can build it into the calculation, it's really not an option. What he's saying is more of a way to accounting and managing option, it's really not that big of an effect. If it was like night and day, half of it, I would say jump on it. But it's not. So, whatever, I can rework the numbers and take out the $4 just in this calculation to show you the percentages, and it's not gonna make a big difference. We'd have to kill a whole bunch of stuff to bring that number down to the really is.
well, we're still, this is like the preliminary.
It is.
So when we get down to the reserve side, that seems to me like it's just a one line item, we get down to that area. We don't have to tell them, if we tell them what we're reserving components for, yeah, it's a line item, but when we pool it, it becomes a one number of it. And then
Don't
we
we
can
legally
use,
have to, I think the law just changed, we have to legally post what the reserve is for.
so what we do is we report the reserve study showing what each of the components are, okay? But then when you flow it out, it breaks it down so that in total, we've got these figures. That in the budget that we put into the year, we just put that $1 in there for the reserve, and
So
we're back to the reserve study
okay.
components. Whereas when we do a component approach, generally we do more like what Shane did here, and that is break it down to the major categories and put out, this is how much we're accumulating for each category.
Right.
Whereas under the pooling, it's a target group for all of them.
Right, so you're funding,
So
this would say $171,000 for reserves, and I wouldn't have a
just
break.
say
That's all.
171, 3,
It doesn't,
but you could add one seven.
the advantages, I understand what you're saying, the advantage. Any of the business world, you want to practice the company.
Right. And
And then
It depends on what we feel we're at that level, that's what it comes back to. But realistically, I mean, you take $4 out of this, and it's
Target for a dollar.
$4 over the year, it's not $4 for the, you know. I mean, it's $3 per month, but it's $36 over the year.
I don't know why, but I do like that.
the way he was saying, it just keeps people a little more calmer, and but me personally, I like the breakdown, but that's just me.
I do.
Every person is different, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a detailed guy, so the breakdown makes sense to me too, but I completely understand.
Your breakdown is still there. It's just, it is sacrifice. The breakdown is in a reserve study. But we're funding it with full message. So when you look at the HO budget, you're gonna see a line item, funding reserve, it's gonna be a single digit number. If you wanna see what that funding is for, or that number, if you open up the reserve study, and you can see.
Well, just to let you know, you could present it that way in the budget anyway, because there's no regulation on the.
Sure, but, and it's not just a presentation, though, it's that you don't, when something breaks, you don't have to say, well, we don't have enough in the reserve yet for this line item, we need to pull from this line, for that item, it's full. So it kind of takes a little lemon.
But in our case, since it's just such a minimum difference, so that.
Well, here's, I guess what I'm just saying, we pull from general, we've never really had to pull a big number yet, so that's where we're really talking, we pull a big number, that's where it really makes a difference.
Right.
We've pulled little numbers so far, from one category to the other, not affecting any bottom line. So if something, we catastrophic failure, roof, and it was premature, then that makes sense, it's gotta come from something.
Mhm.
Like I said, I don't think
Well, I
it's really
think
just an accounting,
next year is gonna be a large number.
it is, but that's why we're funding so much this year for it, and that $75,000 we got back from the state last year went to the pool, and we wouldn't have another year. So.
Okay.
All right, so moving right along.
So this is the bottom line. I mean, basically, we're talking about, a 27% and a 38% increase for the guys in the dues retaining wall. Remember, the retaining wall portion of it was last year was only a 30, I'm sorry. It was,
Like $3.
no, it was, they paid $580. So it's $28 difference from last year. This year, you're looking at, $177 difference.
So, I mean, we're the $62, $77. What was I saying?
I don't know.
No, 100 to 190.
Yes.
What is that routine?
I said math. I don't know if it was on my-
Was there water?
So let me ask you another question.
Yeah.
If it gets over, was it 10%? Do we need to get the association members to approve it?
No,
They can disapprove it.
They could disapprove
they
it.
can,
but
they
have
can,
to
they
come up
can
with-
appeal it.
But it
They have
requires-
15 days to disapprove it and, come up with a new budget to present that would offset all these different items and present it to us to accept.
And they need 75% of the voting membership to disprove it as well. Otherwise, it gets pushed through.
10% of the individuals can call the meeting and then 75% to pass it. It's okay. So. This,
It's 171,000.
so.
So in an ideal budget, this is what we're looking at. This is a good healthy budget.
Oh, yeah.
This is what you-
Without
Special effect.
this special assessment, and it doesn't achieve the workout.
This is different.
It's
This is
maybe
not
the
special
TV.
effect.
Without that, because if you guys don't vote on the special assessment, we have to put $54 second way on top of
Sure, I'm always in lieu of
You're not.
quick pay or gratitude down the road.
All right.
I like the idea of the special assessment. Okay, and it puts this number a lot lower.
It doesn't change.
No, it doesn't change this one.
Doesn't change.
If we don't do this as special assessment, it raises it.
Okay, that's what I was, sorry, misunderstood.
It's the opposite. It goes,
In the 800 range.
Got it. So this is what this one.
yeah, it'd be almost exactly 800 actually right now.
Okay. This is also with no security. And it is going, I think we discussed. There's only one other thing that I can speak of.
General security.
Well, I'm just gonna say, we voted down the security the last time,
I
so.
need it, but it's still.
But it wasn't as bad.
It's needed for completely different reasons,
Mhm.
but even if not security, then you put on full time. Point is, it's.
Okay, here, let's just do this.
But hold on, because there's one other item, Mark's not here to represent, but Mark has been trying to do parking in the Oaks for a very long time.
So
But
You got- isn't that on
do a
CBD
specific
property?
assessment for the.
For- yeah.
I mean, if the Oaks community wants their own park, they can have an assessment for them.
Yeah, but it's not, that's where the conversation comes into, is, like this park here. Everyone has it.
The native pay for the mission.
This is a community,
There's always a golf cart.
just a general area.
Then I called you the
community
other
park.
day.
The park by the pool is a general area community park, but a Oaks Park would be for the community Oaks people.
I just wanted, let's go, not go into that target for a moment, but, I just added $90,000 to my contingency to show you what it would cost to put security in. That puts the general at 819.39. month, on a year, or 68.20.
So,
See, for me, I'm general now, the retaining people will probably freak out when they see that, like, holy cow, I gotta pay that much.
That's over $1,000 for the year.
Yeah, but $20 for me,
61.
It's not $20.
no, from the
It
700
was
to the
62.17.
819.
And now
It's
it's
just
Right,
$40.
but you're talking about that's only $7 for last year.
Yeah, for me, that's no.
Difference from last. I'm not looking at.
It's $400.
Look at it monthly. Yeah. Anyway, got it.
And you have to remember that we're our CD's going up this year again. And we say monthly, it's gonna go up again.
Yeah.
So the average secretary person is spending somewhere in the area of $600 a month on dues right now.
Sean, just to be more, adjusted by $100,000 instead of 90.
Sorry?
So adjust your contingency to 100 instead of 90.
$2.
Hmm?
$2.
$2 is something.
Alright,
The reports I'm getting like 95.
You're just trying to get to that 190, aren't you?
I always end up rounding, by the way. I always round this. It's not gonna stay, this is just a calculation at the moment. It'll round to the nearest, round figure because it's hard to divide it up otherwise. And we have to divide it by 12.
So why did it drop?
It went down.
It went down.
Right, because-
I think there's
Because
a-
I had it.
Then he took the numbers.
I had it 180 for the security budget.
Oh, for 190.
It also.
What about paying an off-duty cop to do
That's
security?
what this is.
That's the
That's
same.
exactly what this is.
So $90,000?
Yeah,
Mm.
it's not, it's roughly
Shit, my
$90,000.
husband needs to do this.
Okay, but so this is extra $100,000 I've added to this.
Yeah, because that's what, the quotes that you remember, original quotes, I was getting were like 95, 96,000. That's all. That is probably. It doesn't have to be 100. That is. For numbers reasons, put in $100,000. The original quote was for 2 officers working pretty much nonstop.
Oh, okay.
With the car, right? So it's hard to get people to work less for, $40,000 a year. That's where you're getting that number. You need an employee, you can't say, you can't get a trained security guard to work less, and that was kind of the issue we're running into. You only give them a couple hours, you can't retain the guy.
Yeah, I got you.
Anyway.
But Tommy, the people voted this and said no.
The community neighbor.
We both.
Hold on, let me premise this. We voted to do a $78 special assessment for security to pay for the security out of the gate.
Right.
Tommy's take on this is that if we put it in the budget, they can't vote it down.
It's not a take on it, it's kind of, it's not, they can, right, it's more difficult. And even back then, I said the same thing, it's something that if we find out, you end up needing, we're gonna put in there. But
Because
it's not about voting down and voting, it's not about voting down, folks, it's about someone, and I challenge everyone in this board to start spending time at all the items before you answer and say, no. Start closing the pool, Kathy. And then come to me and tell me we don't need them, because I can't kick people out of the pool.
why can't you?
Why can't you?
Who's doing
Oh, what do you mean, who's doing it?
it? Who?
You mean on
If,
an
if
average
you
day.
have it on an average day and you just have the gates,
Who?
who's closing, who's making sure that there's no people in
I
the pool?
understand that it's just a hypothetical person, but I'm saying if someone is there, depending on who it is, pool attendant, whatever the case
Yeah.
is, you can throw people out. I mean, it's.
It wasn't a question of that, the question is who's doing it, because right now I'm doing it. And then what's gonna happen at the game? Who's cleaning up the game room? Who's checking that everything's covered? Who's putting the umbrellas? Who's cleaning up the chair? Who's stopping people from blocking Westlake during the parking debacle of schools?
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
Well,
Not going to happen.
you will with a Mark Swan. You're much better than doing right now. Gary.
Well, I just went right out then. It's 30 minutes.
I'm just saying the ground that the community does have.
Let's see if that'll help. I'll just stand there with the sign.
Okay, I mean, it's certainly, if this is what you wanna do, now, I'm just, I know John's probably looking at this going like, we're, because Encore obviously would have to pay this money too, and so that also has to be considered. It doesn't feel much to be $68.96 a month, but if I'm paying $160 for my other dues and I amortize my $4,373 I want to pay for CDD this year,
Yeah.
I'm spending $700 a month. And that's something I have to concern myself about because, unlike anybody who gets a minimum wage increase, I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I get it.
So I have to be That's as a homeowner, I'm telling you that as a homeowner, how much can I afford? It doesn't seem like a lot to you, but we're paying more money than you are.
You get it.
Well, it's not to me,
What
I
am I
don't think
getting
it's any
for?
raises, really get cost of living.
You pay for it, it's valuable.
We're pretty
So
much-
what
What am I getting for? Tell me
we're
what
pretty much locked down. There's a cost of living.
What if we hire another employee?
That's the whole reason.
What about you?
And then it's you figure that's why
What about?
because we were competitive.
Well, my house is open, me, nobody even disclosed that there was.
We're gonna give you, so it.
Right.
No, it's
And you're
not.
gonna have to-
You buy a house, it's gonna be nice, so the dude's $89.
I mean, you just rotate it, you know, just to try it out, maybe.
I get it.
Or
Doesn't change it back.
But we're not really getting anything. for
What
it.
about-
We're really,
if it doesn't have to be law enforcement, what about hiring an employee to work like a
that's
night
the
shift?
same thing.
Yeah, 50 grand, sure.
50 grand's a minimum at this point. I mean, we're spending way more than that on employees now.
It's all great idea, but at the end of the day, what is
So,
the money for the full money? And
And
then
so
that's what they do. I'm for or against it, it is a problem, so let's go into the area.
And that's just like now with the game rooms being open,
It's-
there, you know, I go in there every day, the pool balls are all over the floor. The tables, the covers aren't being put on, the rack, the break, or not the, but one of the pool sticks was broke, we've already had to fix
I
that.
was thinking full attendant, and then maybe we work the hours, be a full time, full, here and takes care of the.
I just had
At the end of the day, you just sit there.
Well, I just had to call her yesterday because I kicked out 3 girls out of the dog park, just, I don't know, you know.
They're water fighting with a water hose in the dog park.
Like, okay, did you at least step in some poop? Yeah.
Okay, well, any more questions on this? I mean, we've got some things to think about, and some things to discuss for sure.
I don't wanna move forward with this, do we wanna do another budget
So
workshop?
we should go through the service areas, yes.
Um, any ideas when we wanna do that?
It needs to be done shortly because we need to ratify this in November.
That's what I would say, let's just do it in November.
Before
Because
Thanksgiving.
we're gonna meet our annual meeting requirements by law, we're already behind the gun. And that's mostly because of the transition, and I'm doing the best I can with that, but we can get it done. So you tell me when you wanna do it, and I'll make my life work around it.
So next week.
The reason why is I've been putting off going out of town for multiple reasons, for HOA stuff, and I had to sort of plan if I would be able to pay the money.
Well, Monday is always telling me.
Well, it's gonna be in front of my house.
Exactly.
That's where it's gonna be, so it's gonna be, it's fine, but yeah.
Do you want to do Tuesday?
Tuesday's fine. Then I'll leave on Wednesday morning
Tuesday.
You hear that? Tuesday?
Tuesday at 6. This
to
Tuesday.
do the next one. Next round.
Another torture meeting, I'm sorry. November 1st.
November the 1st.
You know, I did like you.
I did.
By this Tuesday.
Her
Yeah.
review- Wait, we've got a review coming up for her, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
90 days, 90 days. All right,
Okay.
are we done?
We chewed this up pretty well, I'm pretty sure.
I don't think, I was expecting 120 with this question.
I told you, maybe I didn't explain
I
that
think I'm
well,
good.
but the windfall was, the windfall was we
Yes.
had paid back the 120K from the previous year in last year's budget. So that became the windfall to lower this. Does that make sense to you? Because it would have been, I promise you. It would have been $850 or something like that without that, easily.
6 o'clock or 6:30?
6 o'clock. It always was, I guess, I don't know where I could be. Anyone?
No, that's why I said, did you want me to end it?
All Halloween night.
I'll bring some